anybody joining online, welcome to you as well. We get started here tonight. All right, so we had finished up lesson 14 before we stopped on the break. And so we have one more chapter in this book, lesson 15, and then there's a little section about dealing with, this kind of has a funny title here. Yeah, nuts, flakes, and weirdos. But what we're heavenly provision is what we're starting on tonight, and it says here, your heavenly Father knows what you have needed of, and has opened the heavens for you, so that you will have more than enough. Believers are called to prosperity. What does prosperity mean? Well, it means that you will always have enough to honor God, to meet your own personal needs, and enough left over to help others in need. There is no need to fear lack. There is an abundance of resource and provision waiting for you to access this part of exploring the heavenly glory. And so I was just thinking about this statement, and it's not just, a lot of times when people read this statement and they think about, monetary things a lot of times, but there's so much more than that. There's food provision, there's all kinds of emotional provision, joy, peace, long suffering, all the fruits of the Spirit. God gives us a more than enough of those through certain seasons of our lives. And, and there's definitely been some interesting seasons in my life, there's been times, I think of tithing statements, testimonies people give, and on the money side of it. And there's been some times where it's been hard to give that, amount to God. And then at the last minute, the money comes in. Oh, you guys are late. You left that front door unlocked too. I don't want to fish.
I've never seen anything like it. That's a weird fish. Yeah. I tried. Go get it.
Is it a crossbreed?
Inside of it.
Tastes like chicken. Oh, good evening, Pam. How you doing?
I've noticed a lot lately, it's like I'll think of something, not even pray about it. I needed a lamp for where I sit because I used to have a short lamp and a table, but I moved my furniture and I needed a tall lamp. And so I had one, but the switch wouldn't work. So I was letting Corey look to see if he could fix it. I walked into Salvation, and on Amazon, they were $60. So I was going to order one, the one I wanted, because it really lights up so you can read. I walked into the Salvation Army. They had one, just what I was looking for, $20. I wasn't even looking for it. I walked in because I was killing time waiting for my car, and it was like, there's my lamp, $20. Saved me $40 just like that. That happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, because, while you're telling that story, we had a, our first car was a little Ford Escort as a married couple. This metallic purple Ford Escort. Well, after you've had a couple kids, a little Ford Escort, that's kind of hard for different stuff. It was fine as a couple, but we didn't have a lot of finances, so at that time minivans were a big thing, and so we were we really would like a minivan, but they're way out of our price range, and just like, well, God, it's a need. We can make do with this Ford Escort. It's not like we can't make do without it, and get by and stuff. And, God just kind of miraculously opened the door. We end up with this Ford Windstar. We got money, good money on our trade-in of the Escort and towards the Windstar, and it was something well within our means, for to afford it, and it was a great car for a long time. Yeah, you have one. So, we did it again with the Ford Explorer. I was in that time we were actually more a lot better off, and we could afford something. So I was actually looking for something new. I wanted something new, brand new, and I was looking for a car and like an SUV car, and Kia was a big thing back then too. They've kind of leveled out with everybody else, but they did some their normal tricks, and I didn't like it, and I was just like, I was heading home, and actually across the street when it was Hertz car sales, I was heading home, and I just felt God just say, why don't you pull in there? And so I pulled in there, and because the Kias were somewhere around $25,000, and come over here and it's only like a year or two old Ford Explorer, and they only want around 14,000 for it. Really nice, could seat 7, and it was the year after Ford had went through all that stuff with the Explorers. People couldn't tell if it was the tires or the car, so Ford had actually put a lot more stuff into them, these anti-rollover stuff and all this kind of stuff. They really built them really well that year after all that stuff. So that thing, I think the only thing I've ever done to that car is replace the thermostat and the serpentine belt. It's just ran really well. Yeah, your tires every once in a while, but it just runs. Caleb still drives it, so it's been a great car, and God blesses us that way too. He can extend the life of stuff that we have, from your tires to your car, and that's just a blessing as well, just by having that more than enough. And then also too, it talks about here in this statement, your own personal needs and enough left over to help others in need. And there's been so many times that we've had an abundance and just really felt that God wanted us to sow that into those around us. And so and there's the stories in the Bible too, when I'm spacing the name all of a sudden, the prophet Elijah, yeah, and comes, and the woman who's there with just her little bit of oil left in her stuff, and that took an act of faith, because she was preparing her last meal for death, so it just has that release of providing enough for her, but and just kept filling, and there's just an overflow blessing, and that's the heavenly provision that we have access to. And it, okay. Oh well. Go around. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's Lord making it happen. His provision. So, and there's, you can go on, you know, like I say, does anybody have any stories? I mean, I've shared a couple of mine. Um, Marty shared a little bit there too. Clothing, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Keeps you clothed and exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, that's another thing. God can release wisdom and provision through and favor. So that's I've had that that type of thing happen many times too. It's just like, oh man, this is going to cost a lot of money, and then either God sends someone else along that gives a second opinion, and it just boom, it totally just changes what what it was going to be. So yeah, you somehow make it. It's always amazing. God's so good with provision. And so it goes on here. Um, Talks about how in the beginning, you know, point one it gives here, Adam was given dominion over all the earth and everything in it. In Genesis 1:26. So also too in our lives, um, I was just thinking about some of the stuff as we are going through. It kind of really related to some of the stuff I talked about too, and preaching about looking for the other shoe to drop. And this could be a good point too, as far as looking for the other shoe to drop. Instead of looking for the other shoe to drop, begin to declare what needs to happen there instead of looking for what's going to happen. And so there is and you have to be careful with that one, because there are people that, um, like with my grandpa when they were going through um, with Daniel, and he was had cancer. You know, there was a real strong thing back then that you declared it and you claimed it and prayed over it. And in fact, some people accused my grandma and grandpa that they must have had some hidden sin in their life. And so, it's, you know, in those instances, where we don't know all the answers, that's where again, you have to fall back on that heavenly provision of just peace and God's just having that trust and faith in who God is, not to have fear in the situation, but that He's taking care of it. And I know Daniel at the end, they called him Danny, but he just told my grandpa, hey, Jesus is here. I'm gonna go home. I'll basically told my grandma and grandpa, I'm going home, and I'll see you guys when you get here. So, so it's, God took care of that whole thing. So, you know, but we are given dominion. So there is a point of standing up, like Marty was talking about. When we look for that other shoe to drop, sometimes it seems like several things will happen in a row, and sometimes we don't respond quick enough. We're just like, oh, what's next? Oh, what next? And sometimes we need to have our listening ear open and okay, what's going on? This is enough, and I take dominion over this, and we release that heavenly provision in that, and take care of that, and so no longer does you're being stolen from. Uh, do you mind if I share the story about the homeless ministry? Well, we've been having some issues with theft, and so we've had to, with wisdom, taken some time to lock things down. And it was a bit of frustration because we were even in some of the stuff with just the regular church stuff. From the coffee, that's why we started an inventory system and lock it down too because we were missing coffee and stuff like that. But when you have people coming in, or just even us Americans, sometimes we just feel entitled. If it's there, I have access to that, and so that does happen. Anyways, so Savannah and I were talking about it one day, and I just felt in my spirit that the devil has to repay this, and I'm not going to allow myself and my joy to be stolen because of this happening. I'm to declare that no, this needs to be paid back. This needs to be paid back. And did you want to tell the rest of the story how this individual came along? So what Savannah's saying is she's saying she was really frustrated, and to the point of it was bringing anger, and yeah, frustration and sadness. Yeah. So an individual that owns a little quick shop market or something out towards White City, Eagle Point. They came to Savannah and just said, "Hey, we have so much food left over, and we'd hate to see it go to waste. We really want to start blessing the homeless ministry with this food." And so it was just, it was right after we talked about that, and it was just like, okay, God, cool, you know. Yes. So we took dominion over that situation. We took the keys back from the enemy and says, no, this isn't right, and we take dominion over this situation, and we release the heavenly provision in this ministry. So, yeah, so cool. Yeah, I was watching them a couple times bringing in all the food. At first you think, okay, yeah, that's going to be a cool blessing, and but they kept bringing in boxes and boxes and no. So that was a really cool one, and then so here in number 2 it says Adam was blessed to be fruitful, to multiply, and to fill the earth, and that's, I'll go ahead and subdue it. I was going to read it. I still struggle with how they lay out this electronic Bible, and I haven't figured out how to change it. They do it alphabetical, and I'm used to how the your regular Bible is. So it's the Bible app. Which one is this one? This is U version? Olive tree. Okay, I'll have to download it. Oh, that would be cool. You know what? You don't have, what the heck? They don't have Genesis. It should be under G's, right? It says Galatians, but it doesn't say. Do you have Genesis in? Oh, it's because. What'd you say? There it is. It was because I was in the Passion Translation, and the Passion Translation does not have Genesis. It's just the New Testament. You're right. I'll have to, like I said, I've looked in the settings. I'll have to look. Anyway. Yeah, that's true. Look it up. Yeah, that's good. I'll have to check into that one. Yeah, you have to add the word then. Otherwise, you don't find it. Anyway, so yeah, verse 28 says, Then God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on earth. And then verse 29 it said, And God said, See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be food. So yeah, he's given us quite a bit there. Even goes on, also to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food. And it was so. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So that brings us, he wants us to be blessed, to be fruitful, multiply, and to fill the earth. So a lot of times too, I was thinking about environmental factors. If we live under the blessing of God, environmental factors don't. If you redeem what God is saying and redeem what has been given to you, yes, we are to care for the earth, and we need to do it wisely. I always had an argument with this guy at my work. He was a real strong environmentalist, but we actually became really good friends over time. He really saw that I had a passion to participate in this world, but in a way that was honoring to the world. Because it was a way that, okay, God has given me this stuff, I'm supposed to respect it and care for it. And sometimes we, as the human race, sometimes get out of that, and that's where we see the trouble that brings forth the environmental impact that we have. But if we are operating under God's blessing, and then this is what kicks in: be blessed, to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, because the earth is designed to provide for man. And if you're living under God's blessing, the earth will do that. It was in the 60s or 70s. Yeah, good stewardship over what God's given us. Yeah. Yeah, if you allow greed to enter your life as one of them, yeah, you're going to be a person or a company that cuts down a bunch of trees or does a bunch of stuff and pollutes the water, or because you don't want to pay the money to get rid of it the right way because of the cost or whatever. That's not good stewardship. And that's one thing I would agree with 100% with this. And this guy at the store, he'd be like, well, these companies, I says, they're wrong. He's like, what? I says, they're wrong. They should be prosecuted. I says, they're not being good stewards of what they've been given to operate. I said, they're wrong. And so he'd be like, oh, so you agree with me? I'm like, yeah. I says, but we need to come at it as a balanced approach with the laws that are there, and and be wise about it, and not just totally shut it down. Just because one company's doing this way, and you have another company over here that's abiding by the rules, doing the right stuff, and so it's those factors. So, we can release that blessing to be blessed, to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, but we have to be good stewards of what's been given to us because, this, like Marty was saying, this planet is here to provide for us. God created it, so not worship it, take care of it. Yeah, it's always a good place to be. And then we read verse 29, which was point 3. God had supplied everything that Adam needed: the herbs, the birds, the cattle, the fields. He had supplied everything that he needed there. And 4, it's funny that this one comes up. You mentioned clothing, didn't you? And the last point here is Adam was clothed. So there's physical clothing, but also Adam was clothed in the glory and fellowship with the Lord. So that's one thing too, and that's where I'm going to stop tonight because I'm out of time. But anyways, tonight as we're spending time soaking, I just really feel tonight that God just wants to release provision, in our lives, and also to release wisdom in our lives, to manage what we've been blessed with. And with that, I really feel there's just gonna be a release of just being clothed in that glory and fellowship with God. Because when we take care of, a lot of times, have you noticed with your own kids, if you give them something and you partner with them in that gift, but if they choose not to respect that gift, or it gets broken real quickly, do you feel like participating with them with another gift? So it breaks that fellowship, doesn't it? And so when we choose to take God, who's giving us these complete things, and we choose not to be wise with them, we break some fellowship there. And there has to come some forgiveness of that sin in our lives, and what we're doing there to restore that fellowship. And so, and we're all guilty of that to an extent, because sometimes even more in America, because we feel like, well, I paid for that, I can do what I want with it. Well, have some wisdom in that. So looks like, Marty, you're going to pick up on point B, the fall and the curse. So, and where we go from that with heavenly provisions. So, all right, so I'm going to put on some music, and you can worship with flags. You can, just kind of sit in your seat and just enjoy God's presence. And then at some point, Marty and I will come around and soak a couple of you here. You guys get extra soaking. But yeah, we're just have a good time in God. So.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We honor you. We honor you tonight, King Jesus. Your kindness, who can fathom it? Your goodness, who can even fathom how good you are, how kind you are? It blows the mind. And we give ourselves to you tonight, fully, wholly, completely. We just give ourselves to you tonight, King Jesus. Come, have all of us tonight. We come to bring all of our worship and all of our lives before you. No separation. Yes. And on the shores of my soul, I give you permission to wash my tears away and take home my disappointment and fill me with joy once again. And on the shores of my soul, I give you permission, yeah, to wash my tears away and take home my disappointment time. Let's lift up a shout of victory to the Lord tonight. If you know the battle is won, if you know the battle is won, a shout would last a wee bit longer, yeah? Yeah? Let's lift up a shout of victory and praise to the Lord tonight. Weeping may last for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Weeping may last through this life, but joy springs eternal. Weeping may last through the night, but joy comes in the morning. Weeping may last through this life, but joy springs eternal. You're taking our sadness, you're taking our tears, you're giving us joy, God. solid ground. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yeah, you pick me up, you turn me around, and you place my feet on solid ground. Hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. Yeah, you pick me up and you turn me around, and you place my feet on solid ground. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yeah, Jesus, you pick me spoken over our lives, to every word you've spoken over this church, to every word you've spoken over this people, Lord, to every word you've spoken over this city, God. Amen. Our spirits, they cry, Amen. Our hearts, they cry, Amen. Our souls, they cry out, Amen. We from the